We want to remind Mr. Odinga he had the time under the handshake regime. He had the means. He had the system he always sought. He had the deep state. But instead of using the deep state and the means and the system he had to ensure that he campaigned and won over the hearts and the minds of the Kenyan people, he spent his time in government enabling, facilitating, and enjoying the loot that came out of the handshake regime, especially in the last 6-7 months of that regime. We are also aware their principal motivation in orchestrating this chaos is to intimidate government, to stall the investigations that they are aware are ongoing on the massive extrajudicial killings that are crimes against humanity. And we want to remind Mr. Kenyatta, it's barely 6 years or 5 years since he was acquitted of crimes against humanity by the ICC. The crimes perpetuated under his watch by DCI Kinoti and the SSU unit, I know is a great motivation for him and his handshake partner to want to orchestrate chaos to preempt these investigations. The massive looting of our economy through the Telkom saga, the road sector that we mentioned last week, the maize and fuel subsidies, the COVID-19 Kwanza billionaires, they know and they are aware that investigations are on high gear. And therefore they want to preempt all these investigations. But as we have said, they will fail. And the truth very soon shall be known on who are the beneficiaries of the Telkom haste, of the Kwanza COVID billionaires haste, of the road sector haste, where, as we mentioned last week, roads were being contracted. Foreign contractors were being contracted to build roads with no procurement being done, and at costs that you cannot imagine. That people can be contracted to build a gravel road at a price of 40 million shillings a kilometer with no due process. These are the things Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta are afraid of. But we want to reinforce what the president has stated earlier, that we shall be a country that shall be governed by the rule of law and constitutionalism, not the rule of men. Therefore, we want to tell them nobody will be intimidated by their chaos. However, we have said what Mr. Odinga is doing is only equivalent to what bandits in parts of North Rift and Northern Kenya are doing to the lives of innocent Kenyans. What they are doing is banditry with cattle rustling. Mr. Odinga is involved in a scheme of urban banditry, and he must be held to account. It is political and urban banditry and economic terrorism, which cannot be a solution to the high cost of living. And that's why we're asking Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta, how will destroying property and destroying the economy help to bring down the cost of living? And we must tell you, Mr. Kenyatta, Mr. Odinga, the cost of living is where it is because you too took it there. You looted this economy dry. The subsidies you are demanding that they be reinstated were your schemes to loot from the people of Kenya. And we want to be categorical that those subsidies will not come back. And they will not come back because the government has a plan in place. And that is why we have said, only this morning, I have bought a packet of Jogo maize flour from Naivas here in town at 191 shillings. The same packet of Jogo was retailing at 230, 240 shillings only in June last year when Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta were in charge